Yo, what is going on, guys? It is Toy here, and for today's Destiny 2 video, we're going to be taking a look into the new character for the Destiny 2 raid, Rhulk, the Disciple of the Witness. So Rhulk is the first of the Disciples, extraordinarily powerful, darkness-wielding entities who collectively follow and do the bidding of the Witness. Hailing from the planet Lubre, he played a prominent role in the creation of the Hive by subjugating the worms into servitude of the Witness, and then facilitating their production in Savathun's throne world, all while keeping tabs on the Witch Queen herself from his own pyramid. After Savathun's rebirth in the light, he was imprisoned within his own pyramid by a curse of light placed by the Witch Queen. However, Rhulk would retaliate by bringing the Scorn into her throne world, and subsequently taking command of them. He also serves as the final boss in the Vow of the Disciple raid. So next up, we're going to be looking at some of Rhulk's early life history, and one of the things is called Wanderer, and it says, for a quote from him, "Mother and the others look at me with concern. Not for my injuries, but for those who suffered at my hands, and they are right to do so. Tearing their bodies to pieces brought only joy. What am I?" And those are Rhulk's thoughts after his brutal killings. So now we're going to be taking a look at basically Rhulk in his early life. So Rhulk was born to his father Rhulk and mother Verhana on the planet Lubre, a civilization that had been blessed by the Traveler, but fell into a military dictatorship after it left. Rhulk lived with his clan of wanderers in the wildlands, outside of the Soul City on a planet that was controlled by the regime. The Wanderer clans were subject to frequent dangers, including monstrous wildlife that emerged under the umbral sun at night, and the stalkers sent by the regime to hunt and kill the Wanderers, who rejected the city's ways. When he was young, Rhulk witnessed his father kill stalkers who threatened the clan with the brutality fueled. He confided in his father about their shared rage and was taught to hate the regime by him. But when the rest of the clan began to shun Rhulk for his brutality, he often softened, much to Rhulk's disappointment. His father attempted to teach him patience by making Rhulk watch as other wanderers were killed by a hunting party of stalkers and holding him back when Rhulk attempted to intervene. Rhulk was enraged and confused by his father's inaction and believed he was betraying his principles and vows to bring down the regime. Although the clan tried to only help others in need of assistance and care for the land, the stalkers continued to pursue them. During one battle, several members of the clan were killed, including Fent and the one of Rhulk's clan uncles. Rhulk fought back against the stalkers and killed several of them, claiming their supplies and equipment as his own, including a glaive and Sephiric converter. However, Rhulk was captured during the raid by the stalkers and the rest of the clan, including Rhulk's mother, Verhana, looked upon him with only concern and fear due to his brutality during the fight. Frustrated by what he perceived as their weakness, that night, as the clans danced and sang in tribute to the survival and in honor of the dead, Rhulk ripped apart a pet yacht that belonged to some of the clan's children. The clan was horrified, and Rhulk felt powerful in that moment, but feared that made him a monster. A year later, Rhulk was forced to live as an exile from his clan due to his bloodlust being viewed as a liability. While the clan had not been attacked again since that night, Rhulk stalked the area around the abyss, which separated the wildlands from the regime's city. He hunted the stalkers with his new weapon and tools, seeking any sign of his father in the hopes of rescuing him and bringing him back to the clan alive. He named his glaive Rhulk's Sword in honor of his mission. Although he killed many stalkers over that year, he found no sign of his father and felt lost without Rhulk's guidance. His search came to an end when he encountered Rhulk dressed in a stalker's uniform and was captured by other stalkers under his command. Infuriated at his father's defection to the regime, Rhulk believed him to be a coward who sought only survival instead of sticking by his principles. Rhulk was put on trial in the city for his alleged crimes against the regime, but was spared when Rhulk testified on his behalf and requested that he instead to serve as one of the city's stalkers. This only served to further infuriate Rhulk, as he wondered if his father truly cared about their clan and family, or if he was only an opportunist who would do or say anything he needed in order to survive. He swore to himself that he would ensure that Rhulk would die by his hand. However, despite his hatred for his father, Rhulk began to learn more about the city Lubranes and their philosophies. Although he found the government strict in its laws, with power concentrated in the hands of few, the overcrowded city still had a higher standard of living and comfort than the wanderers who faced terrible dangers aside from the stalkers in the wildlands. He found that the regime was also honest in its intentions, unlike his father, and his bloodlust was encouraged amongst the stalkers. They returned his glaive to Rhulk as well, which he renamed to Rhulk's Bane, and took pleasure in how that unnerved his father. With this new information, Rhulk began to reconsider the conflict between the regime and the wanderers, and realized that both sides were stained with blood, not just the regimes as his father taught him. Rhulk eventually confessed to Rhulk that he was not truly loyal to the regime. Infuriated by his father's continued lies, the two fought, but Rhulk managed to escape Rhulk and the city. Pursuing his father, Rhulk tracked him to their clan's last refuge in the Wildlands. He found it abandoned, but with numerous important personal items and supplies left behind. Surmising that the clan had fled quickly after his father's return, Rhulk believed that they would seek shelter near the Abyss. Rhulk found his former clan hiding near the Abyss, with Rhulk seemingly planning on smuggling the surviving wanderers into the city to live through nearby tunnels. Emerging from the forest to confront them, Rhulk noticed that many familiar faces were no longer amongst the clan. Although his father, mother Verana, and clan mother Kisa remained alive, his father claimed that they had been expecting Rhulk to join them, and the stalker was torn between killing them and helping them to find their new home. Rhulk and Verana both apologized for their wrongs against Rhulk and expressed their love for him. Verana apologized for exiling him, while Rhulk expressed his regret for indoctrinating him into hating the regime and claimed that all he wanted was for their clan to live in peace and safety. Rhulk believed he could see the honesty in his eyes and thought that perhaps that was the path to follow. Allowing his parents to embrace and comfort him, however, they took the opportunity to show Rhulk back into the Abyss. As he fell, Rhulk cursed his Niviate and looked at the faces of the clan, which no longer held regret, but only relief at Rhulk's presumed end. Rhulk survived his fall into the depths of the Abyss. Although he was badly wounded by the drop, surprised by his own survival, the fact that the supposedly endless abyss had a bottom, Rhulk took in his surroundings and found himself in a swampy ruin filled with darkness. He heard creatures approaching, but as they closed in on him, Rhulk heard a voice declaring him unbroken. His wounds healed, and he watched a being filled with dark luster approach, melting the encroaching beast away with its very presence. The being declared that it saw Rhulk's own dark luster, and the Lubrane questioned what the being was and how it granted him life. The being declared itself opportunity and told Rhulk that he was to be and cause ruin. As the voice faded, Rhulk saw its dark luster remain behind, and noted how similar it was to that of the umbral sun, Rhulk's Bane, which had been sundered in his fall, but was repaired as well by the being, and enhanced with its energy. Glancing upward, Rhulk saw the abyssal bridge that connected the city to the wildlands, and knew his clan had likely made its way into the city by then. Taking with him the dark luster that remained, Rhulk used his glaive to begin climbing the walls of the abyss back to the surface, determined that this time he would not show weakness and waver from his desires. Upon reaching the city, Rhulk hunted down his clan and slaughtered them all, including his mother and father, whom he decapitated. He spared not even the children, as the citizens of the city watched in horror of this butchery. The forces of the regime were horrified by the slaughter in the streets of the city and imprisoned Rhulk, stripping him of his glaive and calling for his execution. However, the dark being assisted Rhulk once more in being freed of his chains, and he recovered his glaive, now calling it Lubre's Ruin, and set out to end his people entirely for their abandonment of him. To do so, he utilized the gifts of the Traveler against his people by harnessing the dark luster to reverse the mechanisms of a machine that drew energy from the Severic sun to power the city. Doing so, destroyed the star and began cracking Lubre apart. Rhulk was the last one alive, and as he stared into the abyss, he reflected in horror upon what he had done. Dropping the glaive in the dark luster he had harnessed, Rhulk dropped himself into the now truly endless abyss to finish the extinction of his species. However, Rhulk once again did not perish by his fall into the abyss. Instead, he awoke in a state of confusion. As the dark being from before spoke to him, Rhulk despaired in his actions and lamented the destruction of Lubre. Torn between blaming himself for the dark being driving him to his actions, he declared he had been loved and cared for. But the voice questioned who cared for him now. Rhulk answered that there were none left to do so. The voice asked if he still desired to be cared for, but Rhulk could only say he once did. Then, the being questioned if he had returned that care, which Rhulk had no answer to. The being then began showing him visions from his past, including when he first felt disappointment in his father for not fighting the stalkers, and claimed that he had never been able to return them. Rhulk told the being it had its answer then, but it told him that the answer was not for it, but for Rhulk to embrace. The being continued to question Rhulk about his past, and Rhulk told it of his parents and clan, whom he dismissed as traitors, whom he should have known would betray him as well. As more scenes from his past played out before him, the being claimed it saw a child seeking validation while suffering a great loss. It then asked about a shimmering orb that had visited his people, but Rhulk told it had been long before its time, and it left the Lubre with a divided society in its wake. The being showed him an image of the Traveler, which Rhulk recognized as the shimmering orb from the stories, and he blamed it for providing hope but leaving power behind in people's hands who desired it but lacked an understanding of what to do with the gifts given. Rhulk was next shown when his clan became fearful of his brutality, and then being accused of his clan of being disrespectful of his power. While Rhulk thought them weak, the being noted that he protected them anyway, as they viewed the rituals around surviving attacks and remembering the dead. Rhulk claimed that the loss meant little to the Wanderers, due to how often clan members died. The being questioned if he was sure it was not just him who did not feel loss, causing Rhulk to lash out and claim the being did not know what it was talking about. As he watched his younger self rip apart Yacht, Rhulk wondered why the being was showing him all this. It claimed that having already experienced it, he should have no issue seeing it once more, claiming that Rhulk had always known what he was. Rhulk declared he had known he was a monster, then just as he knew it now. However, the being corrected him and claimed he was not a monster, but a savior. After being shown so many memories of his past, Rhulk asked the entity to stop making him relive his past. The entity asked why he would not want to relive his greatest moments. Rhulk protested the greatest moments usually ended in triumph, and not genocide, before noting none of this mattered in the end. The being told him this was not the end, and that Rhulk was undergoing a metamorphosis that required him to understand and cut away all things that made him weak and leave behind only what was strong. It explained that it recreated his world around them to see those weaknesses, like love and regret, and to understand that Rhulk needed now to look back with pride on what he had done, as it had led him to Rhulk questioned at last what the entity was, and it answered that it was his salvation, his judgment, and soon his witness. After being shown the memories of him finding his clan and massacring his father, he asked the witness not to relive this moment, as he said it was all madness, and he screamed in horror as he saw Lubre once more destroyed by his hand. Reaching the end, where he plunged into the abyss, Rhulk was asked by the witness what he felt now, devoid of the family that he had, the regime, Lubre. Then he held in the embrace of the darkness. Opening his eyes, Rhulk crawled out of the black solution that had been holding him throughout this conversation. Before him, he picked up Lubre's ruin, the luster given to him by the witness, who once more asked him what he felt, to which Rhulk responded, relief. At some point, Rhulk was ordered to station his pyramid in Savathun's throne world, assisting Savathun, the Witch Queen, in the production of worms for her brood. Rhulk was displeased with this assignment, taking an immediate dislike to Savathun, and privately wondering whether he was being punished for his failure with Aslid. After Savathun's rebirth in the light, Rhulk would be trapped within his sunken pyramid, blocked off from the rest of the realm thanks to her usage of the wellspring. After Savathun's defeat by the hands of the Guardian, who was attempting to free the Traveler along the numerous raids on the wellspring by both Guardians and the Scorn, the spell that once trapped Rhulk would begin to fade. Eventually, the spell would break as the Guardians attempted to investigate the sunken pyramid and were greeted by the Disciple, who invited the fire team to enter. The Guardians were opposed by both Scorn and Taken forces, marshaled by Rhulk, as they journeyed through the pyramid, encountering Rhulk's vast collection of museum artifacts, including the rib he took from the Leviathan of Fundament, and then the Caretaker, a Scorn abomination Rhulk had infused with worm larvae to grant it incredible power. After they reached him, he would see no use in them anymore, and sought to eliminate them, resulting in a climactic battle. Though it was not an easy task, they would finally bring down and kill the Disciple, with Rhulk's last words, asking the witness for forgiveness.
It was your infinite wisdom, my witness, that led me into the planet's great sea, and face to face with that which was believed to be unbeatable. You instilled in me a true understanding of wanton domination, not for pleasure, but as a means to achieve our absolute finality. When I reached the creature known to some as the Leviathan, it laid its thoughts bare. Turn from the deep fearmonger, it relayed. I know what you seek. Press on, and you will drown in it. I do not drown. I spoke with a defiant tongue. In a mere infinitesimal measure of time, I held a rib of this beast in one hand, and pushed aside its maned vessel with the other. I rise. When I stood on that precipice, watching the only world I knew collapse under its own weight, I was prepared for the splendor of abyssal eternity. But you brought me forth, my witness, freed me from the world that imprisoned me, made me see the ultimate truth, one I could never see alone. That on my planet Lubre, who I was, where I was, what I believed mattered, all amounted to absolute insignificance. I keep this mural not as some worthless sentimental reminder of what I lost, but of the opposite, of what I gained. Power, truth of the inconsequence of most, control over the universal strings of fate, For all this, I am eternally grateful, my witness. Puppets, all of them. Every last krill, every last hive. I once believed in a higher calling as they do. But you know that. You rescued me from that. Eternal appreciation doesn't even scratch the surface of what I owe you for the gifts you gave me. I know you hoped the krill would see it too. We tried. We really did. But we had to let them struggle. All because of a belief that purpose had finally found them, given them strength to conquer an oppressive home world. How else were they to grow? Their loss, however, is for them to grieve, not us. We will continue forward. Greater purpose awaits, my witness. Conqueror, many called me. Again and again I heard this word, lobbed my direction not with admiration, but with malice. Not a conqueror, I would respond with glee. What then, they would ask. I do not tell them, my witness. As you so graciously taught me, I show them. Just as I did in the unholy den of those starving worm gods. I'll not forget the stench of their rotting flesh, or the way they cowered as I drew near. But they soon learned I was not to be feared. In the end, I left them only a promise of sustenance, and in return, they became chattel for our greater purpose. Absolute finality. And as I walked away, their fountainhead in tow, I could hear them whisper with respect. Subjugator. The Upended. A title suitable for that which turns worlds upside down. When I was still uninitiated, I would stand guard at my post. I would look to the sky and see the two suns of my Lubre. One eternally shaded in the dark, the other always a brilliant blue. And in them, I had seen the folly of our kind. A fear of something we believed bigger than us, and a reliance on that which kept us. That blue sun that we harnessed our power from. A simple reversal of that power cracked the blue in half, shut it off, and Lubre died. I did not know it at the time, but it was necessary. And now that Savathun has trapped me within these walls, it will be necessary again. My witness. Whether I survive Savathun's betrayal or not, the Upended will ensure we salvage our perfect goal. The final abyss awaits us all.
So that is it, guys, for Rhulk on how he basically developed into the disciple of the witness. And yeah, if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. Yeah, it's been Toy Guys. Later.